Right, I think we're going to have to start. It is been recorded, so not to worry if anybody misses it, because we can share it with our colleagues after the event. So hello everybody, welcome to our webinar all around talent scarcity. So we've not got a humongous amount of people on here, so I'm pretty open. Oh, we've got more joining. I'm pretty open. If anybody wants to come on camera, unmute, have this as a bit more of a discussion rather than just listening to Becky and I, feel free to interject. I will try and monitor the Q&A as well, but again, put your hand up, interrupt, and we can try and answer as many questions as we can. We are recording, and I will put this on our news page afterwards. So welcome everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Show selves. Can you see that, Becky?
Hasn't come through yet, but I'm sure it's probably on the way.
Let me know if it does. Go again.
Yeah, looks like it's on its way. There we go. It's through.
Right. Okay. So, introductions first. So it is a webinar around equity, diversity and inclusion, transforming talent scarcity. Becky, would you like, and I'm joined by Becky Webber from Tate. Becky, would you like to do a little bit of an intro, please?
Yeah, of course. So as you can see on the screen, my name is Becky Webber. My primary job is Regional Director for Tate Recruitment. I've worked for the organisation for over 20 years, many years in recruitment. We're owned by the RSS Group, which is a global recruitment organisation covering a number of different disciplines. Tate specifically deals with office support and senior appointments within the office realm, if you like, across the UK. A big part of my job is being the ED&I lead for our business, which I started about 3 years ago, with a blank piece of paper, so to speak. Very much a evolving role, an evolving part of our business, as I'm sure it is for any organisation. We learn as we go, and really enjoying it. I've got such a great team behind me of people that have stepped up and wanted to be part of our employee resource group, that are very passionate about specific areas of equality or equity, diversity and inclusion. And over the last sort of 3 years, we've really progressed our journey forward with that, primarily initially internally, because we wanted to ensure that we built upon our psychological safety within our organisation and allowed people to have a voice and be part of the future that they wanted to see. And from that, we've now started to have more consultative conversations with our employers and our customers and our job seekers as well, to support them to be the best versions of themselves, and from an organisational perspective, to support them with their individual journey towards their inclusion strategy as well. Everyone's at different places, and we recognise that. But it's a very collaborative conversation where we're all learning together. So I hope that captures the essence of me, if you like.
Brilliant. Thanks, Becky.
Okay.
For those that don't know me, my name is Nicky Wright. I am passionate about ED&I. Previously to working at Diversity Jobs Group, I have been head of recruitment for companies like Green King, Compass Group, and way back when I used to work in recruitment agencies, one of them being run by Becky's now boss. So
Yep.
That's how our paths have crossed. So yes, always been a bit of a foot stamper, always wanted to make a difference, and hence why Diversity Jobs Group was created. So Diversity Jobs Group is a job board, at 10 ED&I job boards. We cover all underrepresented groups, and we've just launched a new job board actually called Diversity Jobs Recruit, which is for recruitment agencies, where they can advertise their clients' jobs on that platform, and Tate has joined us and is advertising all of their jobs on Diversity Jobs Recruit. So that's how we've built a partnership together. So thank you, Becky. So let's talk about, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody and see if there's any Q&As. So let's talk about talent scarcity. So Becky, could you give us a bit of a whistle stop of what your take on talent scarcity? What does it actually mean, and what does it mean in the modern businesses? And potentially within that, if you can give some examples of industries that are most affected by talent scarcity. So if we can give a bit of a whistle stop of what it is, what talent scarcity is, and what industries in particular, to your knowledge, are most affected. And I know you've got some stats. Becky, you love a stat, so hopefully you can share those stats with us too.
I'll do my best. If you see my eyes
Thank
looking to one side, it's because I'm reminding myself of the stat, and that's the other thing. I'm very authentic and honest. So for me, you know, if I was looking at talent scarcity, it's a mismatch between the skills available in the labour market versus the skills needed by organisations to remain competitive. Yeah. It's as simple as that. I'll try and answer all your questions. If I don't get to all of them, do remind me. So the biggest thing is understanding, I guess, what the impact of talent scarcity is. And I think without exception, there is no industry or organisation that isn't feeling this sort of this impact, and we also know that it has a big impact in the business, not just for today but obviously in the future, and this isn't going away. This is something that will continue to be a challenge for many businesses, many CEOs, keep them awake at night because of the way things are going, because we know that it stifles innovation, it slows growth. Obviously it increases costs because you're having to pay more for people with more specific skills that are hard to find, you know, the true essence of supply and demand. And it also has an impact or a part to play internally with our own staff as well, in terms of them having to step up to cover roles that might not be filled, which can cause obviously engagement problems, obviously mental wellness concerns, workload, morale, lots of different things. So there's so many different things playing out in terms of impact, and it's really important that we do everything we can proactively to try and understand it, what's causing it, and also what we can do to overcome it. I love, as you say, I love a stat, and I always do. I always love a bit of a research. I enjoy learning. It really motivates me. And if I was thinking about sort of some of the causes, and some of them are fairly obvious in terms of disruptive technologies, obviously where organisations are looking to equip their teams of people for the digital age, which, as we know, is kind of growing and changing at breakneck speed. It's really hard to keep on top of it. You know, we've got we've got AI coming in, and for some that's very scary. You know, for others, I mean, we have to embrace it. I mean, I use AI regularly. It can work really well in a healthy way. I think it obviously has an opposite effect in an unhealthy way as well. So I think it's really sort of being true to yourself and authentic when you're using it. It's very important. But we do need to use technology to become more efficient, because I don't know about you, but everything seems to take longer nowadays, even with tech. It doesn't seem to be easy, but we are constantly having to sort of review how we work moving forward, and what has a human touch, and what can be reviewed, you know, what can be taken away with a digital solution. Another aspect, another cause of it is obviously the decrease in the available workforce. And that's something, again, that's not set to change, and again, an ongoing challenge in itself. And there are many aspects impacting that. If you looked at the latest Office of National Statistics report, you'll see that the economic inactivity is increasing. Currently, it stands at 22.2% from April. And that's people between the ages of 16 and 65 that are not applying for work and haven't been for over 4 weeks. And that obviously is, you know, has education impacted by that. But the numbers growing, as you'll see in the news, due to mental health problems and health problems on the whole. And obviously that's a big cause of concern for the government to overcome too. We've also got an ageing population. I mean, that's been playing out for years. We've known that it's been going on. but it all only feels like it seems to have come up in conversation more recently because we're feeling the pinch and the pain of it. And of course, that's going to set to continue even more. And that coupled with declining birth rates means that obviously we have a declining workforce overall. I looked at a stat because, you know, like I say, I love a stat. And I shared some with you in terms of the ageing population. I did a podcast actually with Lindsay Simpson for 55 Redefined. If you get the chance to watch that, it's on our website. It's so informative. But just to give you a flavour, and I'm sure many of you may know this anyway, is the fact that according to the government's reports, which was the future of ageing population, the working age population of over 50s will increase from 26% from 2012 to 34% in 2050, and that's an additional 5.5 million people working in the workforce over the age of 50. And that's whilst we've got a declining fertility rate. So obviously there's
an
less people.
8% increase from
Yes.
2012 to 2050.
So 5.5 million people in the workforce. So there is a need to encourage older workers to remain in employment and to think outside the box of how we can do that and keep work fulfilling from them. I had a great example actually when I was speaking to Lindsay at 55 Redefined, and she shared with me a wonderful story about a well-known supermarket who looked at their ageing population within their workforce, and they offered them the opportunity to retrain to do coding work. Okay, so brush aside all your stereotypes, because we have to, because that's another factor, you know, with an aging population, we still carry the same stereotypes from several decades ago. But things, you know, I'm in my 50s and I'm young, you know, I feel young and I've got so much more to give. But she shared with us this story about a true story, obviously, about the supermarket retraining their staff. They created a talent pool of internal staff from their obviously more mature workforce to do coding, which is a completely different job from a shop front, you know, a floor worker, which I think is a remarkable initiative and success. And it's something where, again, shows that we have to start thinking a little bit differently. Well, that's not a little bit, that's considerably differently to maybe we have before. The other aspect.
So retraining, sorry to cut over you there, Becky.
Oh, so no, that's fine.
Retraining, not necessarily, because we hear a lot about upskilling in businesses and industries, but less about retraining. So something completely different. We're not just increasing their skill in that particular sector that they're in. Is actually completely cross-functional retraining of a particular workforce. Love that. Right. Yeah.
And they obviously guaranteed if people didn't warm to it or they weren't naturally able to do it, which is fine, they retained their jobs, but they were given the opportunity to explore another career proactively, which I thought was just fantastic. Another cause obviously is slower migration, as we all know, in the UK, obviously impacted by Brexit, as we know as well. We had a seminar yesterday in London, and Russ Beck, who is an incredible person, he's written a book called The Future of Work by 2030. Now, that book is full of stats, but one of the areas that he covered within his book was that he was talking about the Home Office shortage occupational list, which is the SOL list. And in 2019, which was pre-pandemic, as we know, there were 108 roles that were recommended for inclusion on this list. And this probably answers one of your questions, actually. That includes roles from STEM, such as IT programmers, business analysts, healthcare workers. We've got an ageing population, so obviously that will be an area where we will, our UK, well, globally, we will have to increase the number of care workers, nurses, you know, occupational therapists, medical practitioners to look after our ageing population. So that was those were other roles listed on this list. Education for STEM, hospitality, construction, finance, legal, and creative industries as well, are all listed on this list. And they were the shortages that were most severe. But this particular list supports the government with their immigration policy, which I thought, not everybody knows this. And I think it's really important that we do know that there is method behind how the immigration policy works. So I thought that was quite interesting as well to share. So I thought I'd bring that along today. His book's really good, by the way. I would highly recommend it. So Yeah. Does that answer most of your questions there, or did I miss
It
any?
does. Yeah, I think there's some, I mean, industries that I would know that are struggling would be hospitality. I think Brexit's had a huge impact on that. And the care industry, again, you know, it seemed to struggle for years, but it's only going to get worse. Sorry if there's anybody in the care industry on the call. But it's we have to do things differently. We have to do your retraining or whatever that may be, or take people from different industries and retrain them. Thanks,
Indeed. I
Becky.
think the other thing with is education as well, because of obviously the need for more sort of scientific roles, engineering, tech roles, then obviously there needs to be more focus around obviously people, teachers and educators within those topics, because they need to be more prevalent in our sort of in the younger years when our children are at school, to encourage them to enter those sorts of roles, which traditionally may have been filled more by male workers as well, so more female participation in that. So
it'd be interesting, and I haven't got the stat, but to see where other countries sit. So if you look at America or Australia, if anyone's on the call and knows this information, but where are they struggling for talent? Are they struggling in the same areas, or are they struggling in different areas? I don't know the answer to that. Right, I've got another question for you. So are you ready for this?
I am, Nicky.
So attracting diverse talent, what strategies can organisations implement to ensure their job adverts reach a diverse audience?
So, so with everything I'm saying, I'm going to caveat this because we are learning as we go. Okay, so we are. I don't think any organisation can say they're the finished article with ED&I. So some of these things we are doing a lot, and other things we need to improve on as well, but we're very mindful of our sort of ED&I strategy and plan. So the key thing is with advertising, obviously using diversity job boards helps, because that's an inclusive job. There's a plug for you there, Nicky.
Thanks,
but
Becky.
obviously you're welcome. When you're advertising, thinking about where you're advertising for your jobs, rather than sort of just the generic CV libraries, total jobs, or Read, and so on and so forth. So thinking about sort of that wider audience that you're looking to attract. Also developing networks as well, so that you can advertise roles within those networks. So that might be a platform, could be a group within LinkedIn, for example. So broadening those networks. So obviously for those minority group communities to widen your inclusive pool. Really being conscious of your language. Obviously gender decoders are available. There are free resources online. If you're in the recruitment industry and you use a platform like, for example, we use Broadbean, there's a gender decoder inbuilt within our within that platform, which means that when we place an advertisement, then we can basically check the language that is being used within that job advert to make sure that it is gender inclusive. I think the key thing to remember there is that from a gender perspective is that there is, I don't know what the stat is on this one actually, and I'm sure if anybody does know this on the call, feel free to pop it in the chat or put your hand up, that women tend to be more reluctant to apply for a job versus a man if they don't tick as many of the requirements of a role. So I guess the thing to remember is when you're looking at sort of using maybe more female orientated language, that men will still apply for those jobs as well. So it's not like you're discounting, obviously, the other, other genders. Also, I think it's really important to highlight your company values that resonate with diverse candidates. So flexibility is important. As an example, work-life balance, what your ED&I commitments are, having an inclusion statement on your job advertisement to really show that you are inviting people from diverse groups to apply for your job. Similarly, for disabled and neurodiverse applicants, making sure that you've got your people trained around sort of enabling people to showcase their best selves during the recruitment and hiring process. So having those sort of inviting conversations with applicants to ask them if there's anything that we can do to make the recruitment process better for you, to enable you to showcase your best self, is perhaps a nicer way than asking, do you need any adjustments or accommodations? And asking obviously everybody as well, which is incredibly important. We also use a tool called Recite Me, which is an online accessibility tool on our website, to support people that are sort of on our website applying for jobs or looking at the content, to enable them to reformat the website to suit their preferences as well. But I'm sure you've got some things to add to that list as well, haven't you, Becky?
Yeah, no, definitely. So you use it, Recite. We have another app on ours, but it's an accessibility app. That's on all 10 of the 11 of the job boards. The other thing as well is, when we talk about talent scarcity, is you're not always going to find the candidates out there that tick all the boxes with the right skill sets. And I'm a firm believer that behaviours rule skill. And yes, we need certain skills for certain roles, but actually lots of businesses now going down the behavior matrix rather than the skills-based matrix for their hiring. I think there's a large retailer actually that's gone to press with that over the last fortnight, and they've put on their website which behaviors demonstrate particular roles that they have in the business rather than the skills that that particular role has in the business. And that really is helping them move forward and get candidates in that might not tick that box for the skill, but absolutely have got the right behaviours that you can then retrain or upskill, whatever you need to do.
There's one other thing to add to that as well, and you just made me think about it as you were talking, is about the education aspect. So really, you know, it's I'll be honest, it's a bit of a bugbear with me. You know, I sit there and I think it's come up a lot within LinkedIn posts and in the news as well, around requirements around a specific educational achievement, like a degree, when perhaps the role doesn't necessarily require it.
Yeah.
So again, it's sort of re-looking at your job requirements. Are they absolutely necessary for the job? And only putting, really, you don't want to have this sort of a long list of ticks that someone has to achieve, because then you're obviously going to put people off or deter people from applying. So the educational aspect of it is so important, and I completely agree with you. Behaviours trumps skills every time. Apart from obviously those roles where we need like doctors to perform
Brain surgeon.
and,
Yes. Yeah.
we definitely need those skills and that experience there for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Right, I've got another question that's still linked to that though, Becky. And you've answered some of this, but how important is an employer's brand in attracting diverse talent, and what role does it play in ED&I shaping the brand?
Yeah, I thought
I'm really passionate about this part, but I'll let you I'll let you take this bit.
I am too. I think it's all very well saying that you have all these intentions, but the most important thing is that you're living and breathing them and demonstrating and evidencing them as well.
Yeah.
They're not just platitudes or words to put on a website. They need to be lived, and you need to live and breathe them within your culture. And we certainly do that within Tate. So our ED&I group, or our employee resource group, is called Unify. Like I said at the beginning of this session, I started that with a blank piece of paper and a room full of hearts. That's how I would describe it, of people that were passionate about making a difference. We have ED&I commitments, but if you look at our LinkedIn page, you can see that we live and breathe what we say we do. And I think social media is a great tool in order for you to, or a platform to basically showcase those achievements you know, on Facebook or whichever platforms you tend to use. So it's really live and in action. So I think, you know, talking about sort of dates that you celebrate, personal storytelling is probably the biggest learn. And I'm sure many on the call will be able to relate to this, is that sharing personal stories has the biggest influence in changing hearts and minds.
Yeah.
When people that you know are impacted by something that you care about, then that can make such a difference to how you feel about something and remove some of those myths and misconceptions and stereotype and biases that you felt before. So also showcasing that you know, if you're a disability confident, committed employer, we're a disability confident employer. We've just gone from committed to an employer in the last couple of months. We won an award with RIDI for being a highly commended disability confident employer. RIDI is a Recruitment Industry Disability Initiative, for those that don't know. So sharing diversity stats. So we're just redoing our website at the moment. It's not where it doesn't represent us in the best way at the moment, but it will do in the next couple of months. So sharing what your diversity stats are on your website and what you're aspiring to achieve. You know, looking at your social value. So we have an initiative within our business called Tate, and that basically allows or enables our staff to spend a day a year out doing something different in the community and making a difference. And all of our staff commit to that at the beginning of the year. I volunteer for the
Well
Prince's
done.
Trust. It's just, it's all a tongue twister, isn't it? So the Prince's Trust, where I mentor a young neurodiverse person within the next steps of their, you know, career or life, which is a great way to learn. So, and collaborating with social enterprises, small businesses, all sorts of things like that can make a real difference. So these are all things that we're doing, and it's all work in progress. And there's a lot more to do. But they're just a few ideas that perhaps are great, are good to share. What about you?
One of the things that I've noticed with lots of businesses now is yes, they're doing the employer brand, but they're encouraging their teams, their staff, their people to have their own personal brand, because it brings authenticity, and and then candidates that are looking to work for whatever employer that may be can see what the culture is like, because they get a feel for it, they get a snapshot of what it's like. So I think businesses are less inclined to say we don't want any personal branding. They're actually encouraging individuals to have their own personal branding, whether that be on LinkedIn or their different social media channels or on their website. And I think that's really positive step forward, is not just behind this corporate website, is actually encouraging your individuals, your people, to be the spokesperson for the brand. And I've seen that with Tate, actually. Quite a few of the consultants have got their own personal brand. And they've actually probably got more followers than, you know, some of the corporate sites.
I have to say, I was put in charge of the social media from January, and one of the biggest things that I needed to do at the beginning was the employee advocacy, so get the staff promoting and being proud of you know, what we stand for and what we're doing, and that has you're absolutely right, has accelerated our followers no end. We hit 45,000 followers. We started the year on 36. That's 9,000 in the space of just, you know, 4 and a bit months. We're now tracking at 3,000 followers a month, and I'm determined to get to 60,000 followers. But you're absolutely right, it's about humanizing your brand. It's a bit like if you're a line manager, just like you might potentially want to check out your next recruit on social media, believe you me, they are doing the same to you. And if you don't have a personal brand, how do they know who they're working for? Aside from ED&I, people want to know more now about the types of people they're working for. And so it's become so important for a business to encourage their people to not hide behind it. But it used to be a bit of a taboo, didn't it, before, Nicky, where people were worried about people being headhunted and
what they're going to
saying the wrong thing. So it has to be underpinned with trust, obviously. So which is a culture of trust.
Right, let's move on. Let's have another little question here. Okay, big one here. retaining diverse talent. So, okay, we can recruit them, but how do we retain them? What are some common challenges diverse employees face that could lead to turnover, and how could this be addressed?
So from what I've seen, and I guess this is pretty generic, if I'm honest with you, is obviously thinking about the sort of inadequate representation in leadership of diverse, a diverse community within the leadership team. Obviously, you've got the stereotypes, the biases that can create obviously hostile working environments, as we know.
Yes.
And then obviously the absence of growth opportunities for people, that can really sort of affect retention. I did a bit of a poll actually before this call, and I asked sort of the most common reason why people leave. And it's the two reasons that stuck out were growth opportunities and flexibility. Those were the two that were the highest. And that's, I thought, it's probably not a surprise, but I guess it's sort of, an interesting thing to consider. How are we offering flexibility to our staff? We've got 5 generations in the workforce now. They all are motivated by different things. A more mature worker may be looking after teenage children and aging parents. I'm one of those people, as an example, with a mum and a father, both with cancer. How do I manage my time and still give my best? And I'm lucky I work for an organisation that gives me that flexibility to work around those requirements, but still perform at my best and give my all to the job, so it doesn't affect my performance. So there's all those sorts of things. But from what I've learned, is that you can only start to hire inclusively if you get the insides right first. So important.
So right.
Yeah. So we've been fortunate. I've worked with Tate for over 20 years. I'm in the senior leadership team. There isn't this sort of hierarchy, or I can never say that word, but you know what I mean.
Hierarchy.
Type of role. We're all we lead from the center of a circle rather than a top of a pyramid, is the way I would describe it. Everyone's voice is important, and we value everyone's voice. So from that, we already we had a foundation of psychological safety to build our ED&I strategy on. And that is the fundamental aspect that I think is something that any organisation needs to start with, is that psychological safety and trust. And that sort of fosters an environment where people feel that they have a voice and they can be heard and they are free to express themselves. And we found that, what's helped us overcome biases and some of the challenges that I shared at the beginning is the fact that people willingly asked to share their story. So we might have done that through an interview, very relaxed, very informal, that we might have shared internally only. Sometimes we might have shared them externally if it was appropriate, but that would sort of dissipate some of those biases and stereotypes. We've done it on topics like looking after a parent with dementia. We've done it on people within our business that have had cancer. We've done it with mental unwellness, and some of those stories have been quite harrowing, I'll be honest with you. And people from the LGBT plus, menopause in the workplace, and so on, many. And through that, it's raised awareness, and it doesn't cost anything, because all that education is in there, that lived experience is within your business. You just got to enable people to be comfortable to talk about it by having that psychological safety culture. Addressing biases and microaggressions are so important. And by creating a safe place, you can create allyship where people are comfortable to talk up and support people where somebody said the wrong thing, maybe sometimes unintentionally. Yeah, that can happen. I mean, I'm a firm believer that most people are so well intended, and actually we need to create a place where if we say the wrong thing, that we're comfortable to receive the feedback and we learn from it, rather than creating this sort of environment where it's almost policed and it feels uncomfortable because we're all different, we're all individual, we all come from different backgrounds, and we all have different belief systems. So it's important that we acknowledge that we are individual, and it's okay, you know, if we do make a mistake, it's not the end of the world, and we're not chastised for it, unless obviously it's particularly inappropriate.
Yes,
yeah. Other things in terms of addressing it is obviously implementing employee resource groups, similar to what we've done with Unify. Obviously reviewing your policies in terms of inclusion, creating menopause toolkits and so on and so forth, and making sure that your parental leave incorporates about sort of relationships where there's a single sex relationship rather than just the traditional marriage of a woman and a man. Fundamental ED&I training. Our Unify group lead that. We have mandatory training every year, which is e-learning, but then we also do lunch and learns as well, where we have done more recently neurodiverse training and awareness. We're doing some more on that as well. And we also encourage our staff to do additional learning as well. So I know I've done through the Skills Network. If you're not familiar with that, it's a really good, it's free learning through the government. It's funded. So I achieved my level 2 in understanding autism recently. So I was very happy to achieve that. It's equivalent to a GCSE, I hasten to add. And one of my colleagues within our Unified group is currently doing a level 2 in ED&I as well, and that's all free.
What's that called, Becky?
So it's called the Skills Network. Like I say, it's a government funded. So many people don't know about it, and it's scary that these initiatives are launched and then we don't know about it. No. But it's free. Obviously, you have to go through some questions and whatever to check you're eligible. But fundamentally, it's to encourage lifelong learning, which is so important. So
amazing.
Yeah,
we'll put that in the chat. We will put that in the chat.
We'll put the link in.
Finish. Yeah, put the link in the chat. Amazing. Just before we go on to the next question, Becky, what's the stats at I've just noted that, Daniel, I'll come back to that in a second. What's the stats for retention at Tate?
Well, I'm very proud to say, because you know the answer to this already. Average tenure within Tate is 8.7 years. And that's across 74 staff across our business.
That's amazing. So, within the recruitment agency industry, that's phenomenal. So well done. Well done, Becky, and well done, Tate.
It's a positive. There are obviously the other side of that, which is making sure you keep the engagement, you keep the learning, and you keep people embracing change. So all of that is a factor. So that's
well done.
Thank you.
Daniel's asked a question. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, Becky, but for the Skills Network, Daniel asked, who is eligible for that?
Well, I think most people are, if I'm honest with you. So as an example, I was eligible. So I think if I wasn't eligible, it would be because I've done a similar qualification before.
Okay.
So my husband, he's just done a level 2 in coding, as an example. So basically, it's great for re-skilling or upskilling. So I would say just go for it. I mean, if I was eligible, then I would think most people are, unless you've done pretty much the same qualification before.
Already.
Yeah. It's there to encourage it rather than discourage, if you
discourage
know what
I mean. Lovely. Thank you. Right. Okay. Conscious of time, because we want to leave a bit of time for Q&A, and it's 11:45 now. So one of the things we spoke about the other day, Becky, when we were speaking about empowering diverse talent, you mentioned something to me called career crafting, and I'd hate to get off this call and we haven't talked about career crafting. Would you be able to share what that is with the group, if you wouldn't mind, please?
So when I say career crafting, so I'm doing an ILM at the moment, and I'm doing it in executive coaching and mentoring. I find that a lot of the people I'm coaching are more to do with careers, so I was really sort of broadening my horizons with my research, and we're doing it without knowing it's career crafting in Tate. But actually the term is career crafting. So career crafting is a bottom-up focus. So unlike job design, which is more top down. Career crafting is bottom up. So that encourages proactive individuals who want to develop their skills and increase their engagement with their job to widen their job role. So I'm a prime example of that. So I am an operations director. My primary role is that I look after my team across the southern region, and I'm responsible for making sure that I'm, a leader, facilitates the right behaviours, empowers their people, and gives them the right tools to do their job to perform at their best in a snapshot. Because I've empowered my people, it frees me up proactively to take on additional responsibility. So I stepped up to our MD and I said, I want to take on the ED&I side of things 3 years ago. Can I do it? And that's basically how it all started, with my blank piece of paper. So I've increased my engagement with my job, and more recently I've taken on the social media and marketing, or some of the marketing responsibilities as well, in January, which kind of joins the dots between everything I'm doing at the moment. So that increases my job satisfaction, my learning, my personal growth, and obviously it can lead to higher performance. Other examples we've had is one of my team is very passionate about developing people within sort of our young, our newer recruits, if you like. And so she's now working alongside our L&D department. So the operations and L&D are so important. With another learn is the fact that support services and operations work much more closely together nowadays to get the best out of both functions. And she is instrumental in developing our people. We've got an internal marketing, a local marketing team who have a creative flair, and they have formed a community that create content for other branches to promote the services that we offer that are relevant to the local markets as well. So there's lots of different things that we're doing. But when I was reading about career crafting, I mean, it's not just about the job you do. It could be to do with the networks you build, and so on and so forth. But I just sat there and thought, God, that's just fascinating. We're already doing it just organically. But actually, if you were doing it intentionally, how powerful would that be? So I would encourage everyone who is on this call to Google career crafting and find out more about it, and look at how you can increase engagement with your own teams by, it works with people that really want it, obviously, rather than, you can't force it upon people, but people that want to take on more responsibility and develop their skills and keep themselves relevant in today's world, and also add value to the business as a whole. So that obviously helps with our retention figures as well.
Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you. I didn't want to come off this call and we hadn't spoken about career crafting. Becky, I'm conscious we have 12 minutes left and I wanted to leave some time for Q&A, but is there anything that you think that we've missed that we wanted to include on this?
Not especially. I think we've covered quite a lot actually within a short space of time. I mean, the topic itself is vast, isn't it? We're never going to cover everything.
No.
But I think it's probably better that we leave it for Q&A, because then it's more specific around what the people on the call may want to ask if they do. So
amazing. Let's do that. Ever evolving, like ED&I, ever evolving. I don't believe there'll be an end. It will just change.
There never will be an end.
And I think talent scarcity is the same. I think it will change, and sectors, industries, jobs will dip in and dip out of that list.
Yeah.
Right. Q&A. Anybody got anything they would like to ask Becky or I? Or anything that you think you believe that you're doing in your organisation that you wouldn't mind sharing? Sharing is caring. So anything that you're doing that's working really well, or any struggles that you're having that you want to open it up to the group. So love to hear from you. Feel free to put your hand up. Don't feel like you have to mute. Yes, Daniel's put a note in there. Let's have a look. Could you signpost any resources on improving psychological safety in the workplace?
I'm sure we could.
Yes.
I think I'm happy to talk, Daniel, if you want to as well, if you wanted off this call about what we've done in Tate, if there's any questions that you want to ask. I can't say that word today either, specifically.
I never
but I'm sure we can look at some resources that we can share afterwards. Is there a way of doing that, Nicky?
I'm sure when we put the recording on the news page on our website, we'll be able to put some links in there.
Yeah.
So if we could have them, and then we can make sure that we can include them. Amanda H is typing. Amanda, feel free. You don't have to type. You can, if the mutes are unmuted. I don't know if you can unmute or if I need to unmute anybody.
Oh yeah. That's
there we go.
Hi. Firstly, apologies for joining late. I had a technical issue. I work for a police force. I'm currently the team leader for the outreach team, and I'm doing a qualification, which is in HR, to look more strategically at attraction and recruitment. And one of the things that we do is we have a number of staff support networks. So I know you've mentioned some groups. So for example, the menopause group, menopause training and things that you've done, inputs and stuff, and talking about that lived experience really does make a difference. We have a number of groups, so a cancer support group, a baby loss group, but we also have LGBT staff network, which is extremely strong, and one for race and ethnicity, gender equality, etc., etc. What we're actually working on is an inspirational role model document, which will then go on our website. So a neighbouring force have one, but only specifically for LGBT. We're overrepresented compared to our census data for LGBT, and that has definitely has been impacted by how strong our support network is, but we're underrepresented for particular ethnic diversity. So for example, Black African and Black Afro-Caribbean, we're very underrepresented as a police force. So we are actually currently in the process of doing an inspirational role model document with the members of staff and police officers who are from various backgrounds, so that they can use that lived experience, that culture, and show people. We have that, most people have heard of, you can only see it if you can only be it if you can see it. So if we, like you were talking before about leadership, we don't have anybody who is from that particular ethnicity over the rank of inspector. So how would that encourage people to come and join us? We're very fortunate we have a female chief constable now, but in my 30 years service, she's our first one. So as a female, if you wanted to go to our force, we've got a differentiator there that others don't have, because she's somebody you can aspire to be. And I think it was a very, very short, I don't want to take over the whole call, but I found it extremely helpful and really interesting. And the first thing I'm going to do when I get off is find out exactly what your websites are and start having a look at them, because
I'll put the links on.
Yeah.
Amanda, I think, to be honest with you, we're actually developing ours because it doesn't represent us because we've gone through such a change in the last few months, and we've just changed our platform. But if you look on our LinkedIn page, Amanda, and also I'm very happy to have a conversation with you again separately. I'm just in the process of redesigning our website with our marketing team, and I've just created a sitemap in the last 24 hours of how it's going to look, which obviously is in discussion, but more than happy to talk to you about it. So I would say that our website isn't, but in a few months' time it will be fully representative of how we are. So just a point actually with what you were saying, is there a way that your police forces can work more together, so that if another police force has has the leadership with an underrepresented group that you don't, is there a way that you can share those personal stories to benefit one another and support one another in that respect, rather than it just being kept very, very siloed?
Yeah, so the LGBT one, that it's Cheshire Police have the LGBT one. I'm from Merseyside. They actually have in that document role models from different forces. What I like about their role model document is there's more Merseyside officers and staff in it than there are even their own. So if I was somebody who was LGBT and I was looking at that document, and I might go, well, actually, there's more representation here in Merseyside, so I might apply to that neighbouring force. So what we've done is we're in the process of collating all the videos and the like stories and such from our own, and then we will approach people from other networks that we have, because we've got a large like national Black Police Association, Women in Colour, lots of people that we're linked into that we can go and ask for them to be part of our document. But ultimately, from a selfish point of view, I want more of our people in it, because that was the thing I picked up on Cheshire's, that there was more Merseyside officers. So it'd be great to have people of different ranks, because there's senior officers in other forces, but then some of those forces of their communities are much more diverse than ours.
Yeah,
it's looking, I suppose, at all that where you then sit for, and I'm not sure how it works with your kind of structure, but making sure that the individuals coming through are meeting the expectations from those underrepresented groups, that then are making sure that in years to come, when they're going on that development programs, you're getting to the point where you need to be at.
Yeah,
because if it's not starting here, you're never going to get it to be where you need it to be up here.
And it's making sure they feel supported while they're with us as well, because even though we might get people through the door to join us from our attraction point of view, we also have an attrition rate too, which sometimes because the numbers are so small, it has a big impact when a couple of people leave, So,
of course.
Yeah, it's something we are working on.
Well, I will in a second when we finish the call, or just before the end, I will put our QR codes up on there, so you can link with myself and Becky directly on LinkedIn. So I'll put that up. So that's a bit of a if everyone's got their phones at the ready, because I will be putting those up in a second, so you can snap our QR codes up. Thank you for that, Amanda. Really insightful, and I think it just proves a point. Employer branding, when it comes to ED&I, is probably one of the most important things, and the personal branding that comes with that will really support businesses and organisations. Any more? We still have a few more minutes. Any more questions? Any more good news stories? Just put the Q&A up.
Or additional ideas?
Oh yeah. Thanks, Natasha. Very useful webinar. Appreciate that. Thank you. Right, I'm going to share my screen, unless there's any more chats that come up. I'm going to share my screen again, and then we can just make sure that we've got our QR codes up. If I can get the right one. So can you see my screen, Becky?
Yeah, I can see it. I can see you flicking through the
there
slides.
You go. Thank you. So thank you everybody for listening.
That's not the QR codes.
It's not. I'm coming on to that. There's one more.
Okay.
There's one more. Don't all leave yet. Thank you everyone for listening. Diversity Jobs Group. If you feel free to visit the website. 10 job boards, 1 fixed rate, unlimited job postings. Becky, you've been absolutely amazing. Super insightful. Love your stats.
I'm very passionate about it, as you are too.
Yeah, I am very passionate. Thank you everybody for joining. This will be on Diversity Jobs Group news page. It will be on our LinkedIn. Probably take a couple of days, so it won't be on there today, but it might be on there hopefully this time next week. We'll make sure it's on our website for you. And yes, if you have your I don't want to say iPhones. If you have your smartphones at the ready, I'm very biased towards my iPhone. If you have your smartphones at the ready, feel free to take a snapshot. Thank you. We are on time. Thank you everybody for listening. Feel free to jump off. And I'm going to just leave that on the screen just for a minute. Thank you everybody for joining.